The beautiful things that heaven bears. Finding an apartment in Logan Circle was easy enough at the time. There was a for rent sign in just about every building I passed. As for the store, that had been Kenneth's idea. Be your own boss, man. That's the only way to get anywhere in this country. And so with Kenneth's help, I got a small business loan from the government. I opened my store in a place that had once been a liquor store. As far as I know, it was the first liquor store in the neighborhood to have gone out of business. Kenneth taught me how to keep track of my accounts, make lists, order supplies and goods, and balance my budget. I used to think he would have made an exceptional father, patient as he always was with me, and who knows, perhaps someday he will. In the meantime, those fatherly instincts of his have led him into countless hours of tedious arithmetic, most of which I failed to learn properly. Joseph, for his part, came up with the name, Logan's Market. I've never heard anyone but him refer to it as such. For the store opening, he insisted on designing leaflets to pass around the neighborhood. Logan's Market, a new community store to serve all of your needs, carrying freshly stocked produce, canned goods, and general household needs at great prices. In his usual fashion, he toyed over those last two sentences for an entire afternoon in my apartment. What do you think about this, Stephanos? Logan's Market, a leader in top quality produce. Or better yet, Logan's Market, serving you and your family with only the freshest ingredients for the best prices. His ideas only grew larger as he spoke. Logan's Market, an internationally recognized leader in top quality products. When I pointed out to him that his last suggestion might be taking it a bit too far, he responded with one of his twists of logic. Where are you from? He asked me. Ethiopia. And what about me? Where am I from? Zaire? Congo? Take your pick. Well then, that settles it. If you ask me who has the best products, I will tell you Logan's Market. I am international, and so are you. That means the store is internationally recognized. It's all about the marketing, he said. You have to learn to think now like a businessman. I let him scribble away in my apartment until he had settled on something that matched the eloquence he knew he was capable of. By the time the store opened, Joseph and Kenneth had put as much energy and thought into it as I had. Kenneth was waiting for me in front of the store with a bottle of champagne the morning I opened. Don't you have work? I asked him. I took the day off, he said. I wanted to be here for this. We drank the bottle later that evening once Joseph got off work. This is the beginning, Joseph said. Today, right here with Stephanos' store, we begin new lives. No more of this bullshit. Right? We were all guilty of hyperinflated optimism and irrational hope at that point. But how could we have not have been? You should have seen us then. Joseph was right. You wouldn't have believed our eyes. We were young, and we were skinny, and in our eyes, beautiful. Joseph and Kenneth were both still working at the Capitol Hotel as waiters in the hotel's main restaurant. And the opening of my store, our store, as we referred to it that night, was supposed to signal a departure from frustrating, underpaying jobs and unrealized ambitions. As that first night in the store wore on, our conversation grew increasingly grand, our ambitions and desires for the world limited only by imagination. You know, Stephanos, together we could be on to something. That's Kenneth speaking now. He's raising his glass in the air as if he's about to toast the sky, leaning back in his chair with the same repose I've now come to know as intimately as my own gestures. In his own particular way, he could be just as hyperbolic in his speech as Joseph, even if he had a hard time accepting it. Now when he speaks, it's always with an overly deliberate reserve and skepticism. He says it's because he's an engineer, but I know that's not it. I spent 2 months living in this oversized, barely furnished apartment when the heat in mine broke during the middle of a winter storm 3 years ago. I tried not to be around when he came back from work. I couldn't bear the sight of him sitting frozen and lifeless in a plastic lawn chair by the patio windows, drinking beer after beer, wiggling his toes in his expensive wool socks. I came home one night and saw him laughing hysterically to himself. The only light in the apartment came from the street lamp that hung just a few feet away from the porch windows. It wasn't enough to see him by, which was fine because I could hear him laughing and arguing with himself, and I wouldn't have wanted to know what his face looked like while he was doing that. All of this would come about years later, of course, leaving that first night in the store to sit and burn in my memory.
We enter the convenience store and witness Stephanos, Kenneth, and Joseph, the entrepreneur, the engineer, and the scholar of literature, men of great dreams. This convenience store was their land, flowing with milk and honey, or so it may have seemed on the day of its birth. They had endured the exodus from their war-torn nations of origin. They were young and full of hope. The Beautiful Things That Heaven Bears by Dinaw Mengestu, readers are transported into the mind of Stephanos, the man behind the counter, an Ethiopian immigrant, as he lives a rather unfulfilling life as a store owner in DC. This place he and his friends created was supposed to signify a huge leap in their lives from where they had come from, an accomplishment above all accomplishments, from which they would launch all other endeavors. And many years later, Stephanos is still left wanting. The lives that people live after immigrating to the U.S. are complex and multifaceted. There is always the lingering question, did you find what you were looking for?